I'll tell you who had reason to cry. 4 snaps into the season, the New York Jets, they lose Aaron Rodgers. They are now 4-4 after really a pathetic display on Monday Night Football against the Chargers. And Connor, I want, 2-part question. One, where do you think the Jets go from here? And 2, do you think it's even realistic that Aaron Rodgers, who says he's coming back, will actually come back and play the season?
Well, I think a lot of the second question depends on what they can do answering the first part of the question, right? And this is kind of the bed they've made themselves when they, throughout the offseason, didn't get a viable backup quarterback for their franchise savior that's nearly 40. And the reality is guys miss time in this league at the quarterback position in this era. Sure, you have the more catastrophic season-ending type injuries. We've seen Daniel Jones just tear his ACL. Kirk Cousins won't be coming back this year with the torn Achilles. But then you also have the reality, and this is something Rodgers knows very well from last year, you get banged up. He banged up his thumb last year. You could sprain an ankle. You could miss some time. And the Jets went into the year with Zach Wilson as the backup rather than stashing him away as a number 3 if they wanted to continue to develop him. Then they got through to the trade deadline, and they didn't go out and get Josh Dobbs for a day 3 pick swap. They didn't call the Commanders for Jacoby Brissett. These are things that I really struggle to understand the thought process behind, because with the Jets right now, you watch them play, they just need to set a floor at the quarterback position, but they don't have that. And they have a lot of problems. They have problems on the offensive line. Nathaniel Hackett's had a really, really bad year calling plays. They don't have a viable number 2 wide receiver. But a lot of the things I just said are not things that you can change. Hackett is Rodgers' guy. You're not demoting him. The offensive line, it's due to injuries. There's not offensive line depth to go acquire in this league. And the same could be said about finding that other wide receiver. You can go acquire a different quarterback because you're dealing with the backup range of quarterbacks where that player could be a tier or 2 above Zach Wilson. And they chose not to do that. And now it's the hand they're dealt where they need to rely on their defense and special teams and run game to be perfect week in and week out to get them to the point of the season where Rodgers coming back would even matter.
What do you think, Reeta?
I don't have a whole lot to add to that. He's absolutely right. First and foremost, Nathaniel Hackett was hired for Aaron Rodgers, right? That's essentially what that was. They are one of the same, and they work well together. And you saw what happened in Denver. Denver, I think, thought that they could get a play for Aaron Rodgers last year in a trade and bringing in Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't really do a great job of allowing players to play to their strengths. And maybe that's because he's spoiled with Aaron Rodgers and had that type of guy over the years. But ultimately, everybody is on the line here. I don't really get the loyalty that anyone has, and that includes the GM and Joe Douglas. Saleh. I don't know what the loyalty is, because you could potentially lose your job with Zach Wilson being the quarterback out there. It is very hard. This Jets defense is so good, and they are being wasted. They remind me of the early to mid 2000 Ravens, where their defense was phenomenal, and then they had no quarterback, and they was just out there winging it. And it's not like they don't have skilled players that are good on offense. It's just the quarterback situation, the offensive line, like Connor already said, it's really bad. So where do they go from here? Because I feel like everybody's on the hot seat at this point because they didn't make any in-season changes in terms of trade or bringing someone in to compensate for what's happened with this offense.
Yeah, you talk about the early 2000 Ravens team or early 2000s Ravens teams. There were a lot of them. Obviously there was the first one that won the Super Bowl, but there were some. The Ravens became synonymous with like good, sound, reliable defenses. And so that was in the 2000s. Early 2000s. Now, the 2023 Ravens, it's not just their defense. They are just rolling people. They're rolling people. Like, this is what I would say. Like, hey, where do you want to meet? Oh, Baltimore? 1 o'clock? No, I'm good. No, I'm not going. I'm not. This is a setup. Y'all about to beat us down. Like, these are beat downs that teams are taking at the hands of the Ravens. So, Reeta first, then Connor. Can we just say it without any qualifiers, without the right now, and if this continues, is this the best team in football? Is it the best team in football, the Baltimore Ravens? Reeta.
Now, you already know the NFL don't work that way, that you can't put right nows or disclaimers in there, because it's week to week it changes. That's just the way that the league goes, right?
But you don't call it. Hey, you got Philadelphia. Philadelphia,
Yes.
Kansas City, Baltimore. You're taking Baltimore.
Yes, while that is true, the Baltimore Ravens, to me, right now, are the most sound because the opponents that are coming in that are, supposed to be these really good teams, they essentially are not letting score. Coming into that, sorry, I got to bring this up, Holly, but I know the Detroit Lions is the brother from another team. I understand. Yeah. But coming into that game, I believe they had the number 3 DVOA on offense, the Detroit Lions. And then you saw what happened to that. Then we kept hearing, they got DK Metcalf and, they got JSN and, Tyler Lockett over here. And then they only allowed 3 points. So I think that Philadelphia absolutely is in that conversation. But Philadelphia's defense is not shutting teams down the way that the Ravens are doing. And they're still winning games on offense with running the football, but they've become a little bit more balanced now with passing as well.
I'm with you, Reeta. I think my favorite thing about this Baltimore team is that, and when you look for translating success into the playoffs, is how can you counterpunch? Can you win in a variety of ways? And they go out in the offseason, they get Todd Monken, who is definitely a more pass-happy play caller than Greg Roman was. But Monken's not a guy that's completely ditching the run at all. He understands it's the DNA of the Ravens team. They could be a power run team with Gus Edwards. I think they found a new speed element in Keaton Mitchell, who I still can't believe was an undrafted player out of East Carolina. We know what Lamar can do with his legs. We know what Lamar can do with his arm. They have a great front seven that can rush the passer and stop the run. And because they could rush the passer, it's going to help out that secondary. Mike Macdonald's going to be one of the hottest future head coaching names, I think, in the next, maybe not the next coaching cycle, but maybe 2 years from now as well. And when you can win in a variety of different ways, that's how you have these long sustained runs. I think this is the question that everybody has about Miami right now. It feels like when they get their Ferraris out of the garage, they can run over anyone. But when there's some pressure on Tua or their defense falters, they've collapsed this season. Where Baltimore, I look at them the opposite way. They can play up to their opponents at any level because of the different counter punches that they have as a roster and from their coaching, and that they have an MVP under center.
Yeah, I like what you said about Miami, especially because, that's kind of the dividing line right there. You see these Super Bowl odds, the Chiefs travel well, the Eagles travel well, the Niners, I don't want to talk about them. Don't get me started on the Niners, but Ravens travel well, but then Cowboys, Dolphins, and now you got to include Lions, questionable. Does it travel well? I think the Bengals travel extremely well, as most teams in the AFC North do, but Miami is a good point. Ferrari's out, they're ready to go, but Connor, when they come to Stamford, Connecticut, and, it's that little, that salt on the road, salt on the asphalt. They throw the sand down, the nor'easter. They don't know nothing about a nor'easter. They don't know nothing about it. And they just want to go back in the house. Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.